Happy Saturday! It's Paul here of the NWO is Bunk channel. And I know that probably the first response I'm going to get from conspiracy theorists watching this video, from Christians who are very concerned that we are in a key generation to the second coming of Christ. Any other person who subscribes maybe to the views of Alex Jones, Jordan Maxwell, William Cooper, and others, their first response is going to be, well, you're deluding yourself, you're fooling yourself into believing that there is no New World Order so that you can go about your daily life. And really, my response to that, preemptively, before you even say that, is, I'm not. And that's really all I can say. If I thought there was a reason to believe that there was a secret cabal that's running the world and crashing the economy on purpose, I would. If I really believed there was a reason to, I absolutely would. And I would be fighting it along with you. But from where I'm standing right now, the enemy doesn't exist, and I can't sign on to fight a war against an enemy that isn't there. I just can't do it. And I mean that very sincerely, guys. But I read a quote yesterday from an individual by the name of Richard Hofstadter, I believe it was. And he wrote, "We are all sufferers from history, but the paranoid is a double sufferer, since he is afflicted not only by the real world with the rest of us, but by his fantasies as well." And that really struck me when I read it yesterday, because it really made me understand why, in the first place, I bothered to make a YouTube account called NWO is Bunk, and why I bothered to make any videos responding to the claims of Alex Jones and others. And that's the reason that's captured very perfectly. Because honestly, this is going to sound really condescending. I'm sorry about that. But when I see somebody like Gear Up, I feel sorry for him. And the reason is because, like the rest of us, he has to worry about an economy that isn't doing very well. He has to worry about H1N1. He has to worry about those real problems. But he also has to worry about the imaginary man behind the curtain who is pulling all the strings. He has to worry about the microchips or the demonic serum that might be hidden in the swine flu vaccination. He has to worry about the Rockefellers and everyone else that's a bad guy in their mind, crashing the economy on purpose. And, you know, it makes me think back to me when I was about 16, 17 years old. When I was in the 11th grade, I became a born-again Christian. And I felt a tremendous amount of peace. I'd felt more peace than I'd ever felt in my entire life. And what follows is not going to be an indictment of the Christian faith. It's going to be an indictment specifically of something that I think is corrupting the Christian faith and making it appear very retarded and making it do a lot of damage. You know, I felt a tremendous amount of peace, but I soon found myself introduced to the dominant eschatology that you find in most evangelical churches. The idea of a rapture, the idea of the end times, the idea of the rise of the Antichrist, the idea of the mark of the beast in the forehead or on the back of the hand. And what I can remember, I remember very vividly being shown a series of films that were made in the 70s called A Thief in the Night. I believe there were 3 movies in that series. Those movies they looked like they were made by film school rejects. They were terrible movies. But basically what they were a depiction of the end times. And in those movies you have the rise of the Antichrist, you have the rapture, you have the mark of the beast, you have people executed for refusing to take the mark of the beast. And I remember watching those movies and being enthralled. I remember watching those movies and being absolutely terrified. Absolutely, utterly terrified. I had dreams about the scenarios that happened in those films. Very vivid drems. Sometimes, I'd look around, I'd be going about my daily life, and I'd think, any second, we're going to see the rise of a one-world government. Or I'm going to wake up one day, there's going to be a one-world satanic government that's going to take away all of my rights, that's going to say to me, if you want to live, you're going to take this mark. And if you don't take this mark, we're going to chop off your head. It was terrifying. And I became pretty obsessed with looking at the headlines. I would look at what the UN was doing, and the UN to me was absolutely irredeemably evil. It was trying to do something very sinister. It was, it was going to represent Satan on earth when, the shit really hit the fan. And I thought its Secretary General would eventually reveal itself to be the Antichrist. There were some days I thought to myself, one day, Bill Clinton is going to reveal himself to be the Antichrist, or somebody in the European Union is going to reveal themselves to be Antichrist. I would look at events in the Middle East, and I would see death and destruction, and I'd think to myself, that was talked about in Scripture. We're getting near the end. Then a couple years later, I found myself thinking, well, when hasn't the world felt like it wasn't being pushed toward something? Some ultimate destiny, some final act, if you will.